Hey, what's going on guys, it's Chum here and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links video. Today, we're talking about some crazy new Duel Links leaks for the 14th main box Gaia Genesis. Now, these leaks revealed a bunch of cards, somewhere in the range from like 50 to 100 cards, which is a giant number of cards. Now, of course, we're not going to go through all these cards in this video. Instead, we're just going to talk about the ultra rares and the super rares, but I'll leave either a list in the description or a link to a list so you guys can find out and look at all the different cards that are available in this most recent box. It's also worth mentioning that this box comes out in a little under a week, so make sure you save as many gems as possible because I believe this box is going to be one of the better ones. Now, without further ado, let's jump into it with our first ultra rare card. We have Mermail Abyss Megalo, and this card is supposed to be the boss monster of what many people consider to be the new meta deck coming to Duel Links. Now let's talk a little bit about this card. It's a 2400 attack Sea Serpent monster, which, I mean, the attack and everything isn't really that powerful, but if you read its effect, it can do some pretty crazy stuff. So first of all, you can discard 2 other water monsters to the graveyard and special summon this card from your hand. So a pretty easy summon effect, plus in combination with a certain few other water monsters that are in this box, you'll actually be able to play off some pretty powerful combos and gain an advantage on your opponent. Then, when you do summon this monster, you can add one Abyss Dash spell and trap card from your deck to your hand. So, this is what's really powerful because the box actually comes with a few different options for Abyss spell and traps that you can add to your hand. There are 2 different equip spells, one that can, add attack and negate spells, another one can add attack and negate trap cards, and then we also have another trap card that'll actually let you do a mass revive of 3 Merman monsters, which is pretty crazy. Then moving on to the second part of its effect, you contribute 1 other face-up attack position water monster. This card can make a second attack during each battle phase this turn. So, of course, you're getting this card to attack twice. Even though 2400 isn't the best attack in the game, you can easily get this monster to 3200 because those equip spells that you can search for when this card is summoned give the monster 800 attack. So it can be really tough, and hitting twice with 3200 is devastating. And we can't forget that, as I mentioned, there are some other cards in this box that when tributed or sent to the graveyard for a water monster's effect will give you even more plus, meaning that you can actually gain that effect and then get a second attack and just go in. Either way, let's move on and talk about the next card we have, which is kind of the namesake of the box. We have Elemental Hero Gaia. Now, I'm a fan of all kinds of Elemental Heroes, and I love that we're finally getting one of the truly elemental heroes, if that makes sense. As you guys can see by this monster's fusion material, it requires any elemental hero monster and 1 earth monster, and I'm really looking forward to getting more of these in the game because being able to fill your deck with as many elemental heroes or the best elemental heroes as possible, as well as some other like random monsters or even just, solely elemental heroes, and be able to kind of fuse them together in random combinations to make powerful monsters is super exciting. Now, as you guys can see, this card has 2200 attack and 2600 defense, but it has a pretty crazy effect. This monster cannot be special summoned except by fusion summon. When this card is fusion summoned, select 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. Until the end of this turn, that monster's attack is halved, and this card gains the same amount of attack. So, basically, this card, when it's summoned, lets you activate Ryoko in itself. It's gonna be pretty insane. You can effectively attack over that opponent's monster for 2200 damage, because, of course, when they're halved and you gain that half, the difference in your attack is basically your base attack, which of course is 2200. So I think this card is actually going to be really fun to use, and because it's so generic and requiring just any elemental hero monster and any earth monster, I think it could be really useful. Not to mention that Elemental Hero Wildheart is one of the better ones because it ignores traps and it can be used as both the elemental hero monster or the earth monster in the fusion summon of Elemental Hero Gaia. So I'm definitely looking forward to this card. This is one that I'm really hoping to pick up. Either way, let's move on to the next one. Next up, we have UA Midfielder, a 4-star warrior monster from the UA archetype, which of course is going to be brand new to Duel Links. And this guy has some pretty interesting effects. First of all, it has 1200 attack and 1000 defense, not the best stats, but I feel like its effect is really what makes it so amazing. You can special summon this card from your hand by returning 1 UA monster you control to the hand, except UA Midfielder. You can only special summon UA Midfielder once per turn this way. During either player's turn, you can target 1 other UA monster you control, return that face-up monster to the hand, then special summon 1 UA monster from your hand with a different name from that monster. You can only use the effect of UA Midfielder once per turn. So, basically, this card is actually the combo maker for the UAs. It's able to special summon itself by bouncing something, and then it can bounce another thing to get something bigger out, and this is one of the best ways for this deck to get their boss monsters. Instead of having to tribute them, you kind of use UA Midfielder as, I guess, the midfielder. He kind of gets you, from that early game to the end game by just being in the middle and helping you make your plays. I think it's actually super incredible. I haven't looked into all the different UA cards in this box, but I've seen the UA cards in the TCG, and they have some pretty cool boss monsters, which I think will do well in Duel Links. Either way, let's move over to our next ultra rare card, And up next we have Swap Frog, the level 2 water aqua monster with 1000 attack and 500 defense. And this card has a pretty long effect. You can discard one water monster to special summon this card from your hand. When this card is summoned, you can select and send one level 2 or lower aqua type monster from your deck or your side of the field to the graveyard. Once per turn, you can return one monster you control from your hand to normal summon one frog monster except Swamp Frog or Frog the Jam in addition to your normal summon or set this turn. So I actually think this card is pretty great. It can special summon itself by discarding a card, which of course is super great. It allows you to go for those level 5 and level 6 monster summons which you might need in decks like Monarchs or Hazy Flame. Not to mention, it can actually send a level 2 or lower aqua type monster from your deck to the graveyard, which can include something like Treeborn Frog, thus allowing you to have even more tribute fodder for your following turns. I think this card is pretty great. It doesn't live up to the full potential since we don't have XYZ monsters, but I think it's going to be a great addition to the game. Not to mention, I feel as though it's going to be really great paired up with Mermails, allowing you to kind of send the monsters you want to send to the graveyard and trigger off their powerful effects. Now that's it for the monsters in the UI category. Let's move over to some spells and traps. The first spell and trap we have here is Galaxy Cyclone. This card is, of course, a normal spell, and this card lets you target one spell and trap card on the field and destroy it. During your main phase, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one face-up spell or trap card on the field and destroy it. You can only use this effect of Galaxy Cyclone once per turn. Now this card is some spell and trap removal that I really love, because it's basically 2 for 1. You can start off by just playing the card down and destroying a spell and trap card on the field, and then on your follow-up turn, you can actually destroy another spell and trap card. Only downside to this is the first target must be set, and the second target must be face up. I feel as if this card could have some kind of impact on the meta, because while you don't see a lot of face-up spells or traps in most decks, Amazonas being one of the main decks in the meta is actually going to be pretty hurt by this card, because you can target something and destroy it, and in the event that you don't hit the Amazon's Onslaught, you can just destroy it next turn by banishing Galaxy Cyclone from the graveyard. I'm definitely looking forward to this card. Hopefully I can pick up some copies when the box comes out. Either way, let's move into our next ultra rare spell. We have Gemini Spark, a card that I'm super excited about because I do love Gemini monsters, and this card's effect is very simple. Tribute one face-up level 4 Gemini monster, then target one card in the field, destroy it, and if you do, draw one card. Now, I think this card is pretty great. You get to destroy your opponent's card and you get to draw a card, which I think is super awesome. Not to mention that a lot of Gemini monsters don't mind being in the graveyard, and it's even better when you have the monster equipped with Supervision, because when they get sent to the graveyard, Supervision will just bring them back again. I think this card is going to add a lot to Gemini decks, however I'm not too sure just yet whether it's a big enough push to make them meta. Either let's move on to the next card, another archetype card. We have the Gates of Dark World. It is a field spell card. All fiend type monsters gain 300 attack and defense. Once per turn you can banish one fiend type monster from your graveyard, discard one fiend monster, then draw a card. Now this card is amazing because it lets you discard your Dark World monsters and trigger off their effects, because of course the discard effect is not a cost, it actually is part of the effect. The only downside to this card is it's an extender and not a starter. One of the biggest problems with the Dark World deck is the consistency isn't always there, and while it is still quite powerful, and this card is powerful for the deck, because it's not a starter, but rather an extender, it's not going to really help the deck become more consistent. And the reason I say it's not a starter is because you have to have a fiend type monster in your graveyard to begin with. You have to banish something from the graveyard to get your discard. And if you haven't got anything else in your hand to discard a card, you're not going to have any fiend type monsters in the graveyard, which of course is this card's downside. Now if you happen to have all the starters you need to get your combo going, the Gates of Dark World is actually going to be a great card to help you extend and make sure that you see your combo through the end and get the best outcome possible. Overall, I think it's a great card for Dark Worlds, and I think it's definitely worth picking up at least one copy, because when you see it and you have your starter, it's going to be of great help. Now moving on to the one trap card we have leaked for the UI category is honestly what I think might be the best card in the box, and that is Drowning Mirror Force. This card of course is a Mirror Force variant, and I consider this to be one of the best Mirror Force in the game. When an opponent's monster declares a direct attack, shuffle all your opponent's attack position monsters into the deck. Now, of course, this Mirror Force's downside is that it must be direct attack. However, its great strength is that instead of sending the monsters to the graveyard or back to your opponent's hand, they get shuffled back into the deck, meaning your opponent loses a lot of advantage. Their deck is now thicker, meaning it's hard for them to see the combo pieces they need. And of course, they lost basically a field of monsters, which I think is pretty incredible. Their boss monster going back to the deck is going to make it so much harder to get back than if it was in their hand or in the graveyard. And I think that's absolutely incredible. Not to mention, in Duel Links these days, you don't really see duels won without anyone attacking directly. With that being said, I feel as though if you happen to draw into this card, 90% of the time it's going to be useful to you, unless you're going up against something like Ancient Gears, or your opponent has other mechanics to destroy your spell and traps to prevent them from being activated. I think Drowning Marine Force is probably going to be the chase card of the set. It's going to be super helpful in getting you past various scary decks like Masked Heroes. Could you imagine your opponent Mask changing and then having their Masked Hero sent straight back into their deck? They would be absolutely destroyed. Otherwise, that's going to be it for the Ultra Rare. Let's move on to the Super Rare cards. And the first thing we have here is a Gemini monster called Dark Valkyria. And this monster's Gemini effect is, once while this card is face up on the field, you can place one spell counter on it. This card gains 300 attack for each spell counter on it. You can remove one spell counter from this card, then target one monster on the field and destroy that target. I think this card is incredible. If you're able to get this thing normal summon a second time or equipped with Supervise, you're actually able to pop a monster on the field, which I think is pretty incredible. And 1800 attack is nothing to laugh at. I definitely want to get a copy of this card for my future Gemini deck because it's going to be a great addition. Now moving on to our next super rare card, we have another new archetype, the Kawakimeru archetype, and this time we have their Sandman. So this card is pretty interesting. During each of your end phases, destroy this card unless you send one Iron Core of Kawakimeru from your hand to the graveyard, or reveal one rock type monster in your hand. So really interesting effect there. You kind of have to make sure you're able to sustain this monster, but it is pretty powerful. Level 4 with 1900 attack. And you contribute this card to negate the activation of a trap card and destroy it. So these monsters have some pretty powerful effects and some pretty powerful stats. Of course, you just need to make sure that you're actually able to maintain them on the field. Then moving on to our next super rare card, we have another Kawakimeru monster. This is Kawakimeru Urnite. And this card is just as powerful as the predecessor. During each of your end phases, destroy this card unless you can send one Iron Core of Kawakimeru from your hand to the graveyard, or reveal one Beast Warrior type monster. And you notice that the last monster was Rock and this monster is Beast Warrior, so you basically just have to show a monster of the same type from your hand and say, hey cool, I can keep this guy. And then once per turn you can reveal one Iron Core of Kawakimeru in your hand to special summon one level 4 or lower Kawakimeru monster from your deck, except Kawakimeru Urnite. And I think this card is the best one of the Kawakimeru archetype because it is your extended. It helps you get more monsters in the deck. And of course, if you do have that Iron Core, that means you're going to be able to keep the monster you special summon with this effect for at least one turn, which I think is pretty great. I'm not too sure how difficult it's going to be to play around their effect of destroying themselves at the end phase, but I'd love to give this deck a try because it seems like it's going to be a lot of fun. Now moving on to our next super rare card, we have Mermail Abyss Spike, and this card is going to be super great as a combo card for the Mermail deck. When this card is normal or special summon, you can discard one water monster to the graveyard and add one level 3 water monster from your deck to your hand. And of course, you can only use this effect of Mermail Abyss Spike once per turn. Now this effect I think is actually pretty incredible because you're able to discard a water to get another water, and you can actually end up discarding a water monster that will give you an effect because it was discarded, and then search another water monster which you can then use in order to special summon your Mermail Abyss Megalo, which I think is going to be a really powerful combo if you see all these cards together. I'm definitely looking forward to Mermail, as I mentioned. And now let's move on to the specific cards I'm talking about, which have effects when they are sent to the graveyard by a water monster's effect. So the first up, we have Atlantean Marksman. When this card inflicts bio damage to your opponent, you can special summon one level 4 or lower Atlantean C7 type monster from your deck except Atlantean Marksman, which of course is a pretty powerful effect, but here's where it gets better. When this card is sent to the graveyard to activate a water monster's effect, target one set card your opponent controls and destroy that target. So basically, when you send this card to the graveyard in order to use the effect of Abyss Pike, or even special summon Abyss Megalo, or even tribute for Abyss Megalo's double attacking effect, Atlantean Marksman is going to let you destroy one set card your opponent controls, which I think is absolutely incredible. It almost feels just like the way that for hires are able to special summon themselves and then pop set cards or face up cards. These cards are very, very similar. And if we move on to the next Atlantean card we're getting, we have Atlantean Heavy Infantry. During your main phase, you can normal summon one level 4 or lower C7 type monster in addition to your normal summoner set. You can only gain this effect once per turn. When this card is sent to the graveyard to activate a water monster's effect, target one face-up card your opponent controls and destroy that target. So as I mentioned, target one face-up or target one face-down. Atlantean Heavy Infantry lets you target a face-up, and Atlantean Marksman lets you target a face-down. It seems very similar to For Hire's Marksman and For Hire's Scout. Very, very powerful cards that when used to actually extend your plays will destroy stuff in your opponent's side of the field, which I think is absolutely incredible. Basically, they help you push forward and help push your opponent back. These cards are great cards to the deck. You're going to want to be running at least 2 copies of each of these cards in your deck, I can imagine, because they're going to be a great, incredible extender for the Mermail deck. Now, moving on to the next super rare monster, the last super rare monster we have for this box, we have Snowman Eater. And this card, I know it sounds a lot like Man-Eater Bug, because it is like Man-Eater Bug. When this card is flipped face up, target one face up monster on the field and destroy that target. It has a few small differences from Mana-to-Bug, namely the fact that this card is triggered when it's flipped face up, not just as a flip effect. So there's a few different ways that the game interacts with that compared to a flip effect monster, and it has some pretty high defense, so the chances are your opponent's going to attack into it, not be able to attack over it, and then you're able to pop a monster on the field, and that will probably end your opponent's turn. I think it's pretty incredible. I don't know if it's worth investing in if you already have Mana-to-Bug, but it's definitely a good alternative if you haven't already got Mana-to-Bug. Otherwise, that's it for the super rare monsters in this box. Let's move over to the spells and traps. The first spell we have is UA Stadium. Of course, a field spell for the UA archetype. If a UA monster is normal summoned to your side of the field, you can add one UA monster from your deck to your hand. Absolutely incredible effect. You summon a monster, you search another one, and you can start doing those bounce effects that midfielder lets you do so well. Then, once per turn, if a UA monster is special summoned to your side of the field, all monsters you currently control gain 500 attack. So very, very powerful stuff there. You're actually able to then kind of do your balancing plays, get the biggest boy in the field, and then trigger this effect to give him 500 more attack. I think this card is going to be a very welcome addition to the UA archetype. And finally, moving on to the last super rare card we have leaked in this box, we have UA Penalty Box, a continuous trap card. At the start of the damage step, if your UA monster battles an opponent's monster, you can banish that opponent's monster until the second end phase. You can only use this effect of UA Penalty Box once per turn. You can banish this card from your graveyard to add one UA spell card from your deck to your hand. So this card is very incredible. You're able to banish your opponent's monsters for effectively 2 turns, and you can even trigger this effect during your opponent's turn, meaning you can really disrupt their plays. And in the event that your opponent actually gets this card off your field, it's going to help you see the spell cards to kind of get you back into the action. I think UAs are going to have a pretty strong presence in PvP. I'm not too sure if they're going to be meta yet, but they sound like they're going to be a lot of fun. Otherwise, guys, that's it for all the leaked cards in the newest main box, Gaia Genesis. I'm definitely looking forward to this box. Almost every single archetype I talked about in this set seems like something really, really fun to build. And while normally I don't invest money into opening cards for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, I think this is going to be one of those sets that I do, because this set seems like it's going to be a lot of fun. Otherwise, guys, like I mentioned before, if you want to see all the other lead cards in this set, you can take a look in the description below. Either leave a link to a list or put the list there itself. So hopefully you guys will be able to look through that and find some other cards in this set that you might consider to be really powerful or exciting. And of course, let me know what your favorite card is that I revealed in this leaked video, or if it's one of the rares or normals, let me know which card you think is best out of those as well. Either way, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. And of course, if you guys want to see more Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links content in the future, including PvP videos, leak videos, and news videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button also, because there's going to be plenty more coming very, very soon. Either way, I want to thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. And until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.